Yo, what's going on, everybody? This is your boy, the MMA Mechanic. Before we go on, please hit subscribe, like, and when we're done with the video, I know you're gonna have comments and responses, so please go ahead and leave those for me. I would love to hear what you guys think about the video. Let's get into it, right? So this is gonna be a trilogy fight. This is gonna be one of the fights of the year, in my opinion, if not one of the best fights ever. As you guys know, these two gentlemen have fought before. They've had two fights before. And we're going to discuss those fights here in a second. But before we do that, listen, we're going to break down, or we're going to give Mr. Poirier, Dustin the Diamond Poirier, some flowers real quick, because Buddy is about to retire. And as you know, if you're anything like me, he's had a legendary career, in my opinion. In my opinion, the best fighter to never win a championship belt. I mean, I know he was an interim champion, but I mean the undisputed belt. I think he's the best fighter of all time to never do that. Listen, we've seen this guy in fun back and forth with Michael Chandler. We've seen him in a war with Dan Hooker. One of my favorite fights I've ever watched, right? We've seen him in huge fights versus Max two times already. This is the third one. We've seen him in three fights with Conor McGregor. He's won two of those. We've seen him fight Eddie Alvarez, right? Fun fight. We've seen him fight ex-champion, one of my favorite champions in history, Anthony Pettis, and beat him. Okay, he's finishing most of these guys in these fights, dude. These are high-level fighters, man. Dustin has had a legendary career. He's a very, very popular fighter, which is why I think they're putting the fake BMF belt up as a pay-per-view headliner, because of how popular Dustin is. And then and Max, and similarly for Max, but I just think that, again, this is Dustin's last dance, man. If you're a fight fan, you have to love Dustin, man. Good guy, just comes out there and puts on a war pretty much every time. You know you're guaranteed for fireworks. The guy has 9 fight of the night bonuses. You know how hard that is to do? It's very hard. All right. So yeah, man, just gotta give him some flowers, man. And listen, I am ready for this back and forth banger that we're about to witness. I'm really excited for it. I do think that Dustin and Max are about to give us another classic, another classic. All right. So with that being said, guys, let's get into it. Let's get into it. All right, the first fight. Look, this happened over 10 years ago. Yeah, over 10 years ago now. And these guys were pups, right? So Max was 20 years old, Dustin was 23. I do think that in this fight, you saw domination. Dustin went in there in the first round, picked him up, lifted him up off the ground, slammed him on his back, got in a mounted triangle choke, right? And transitions to a armbar. Beautiful, beautiful to watch. It was the you saw Dustin's well-roundedness in that fight. Yeah, it wasn't. He has a grappling and a wrestling game, and the guy can do it pretty much everywhere. Yeah, so the first fight, really, honestly, does I don't think is gonna have much similarities to the third fight or even the second fight. So with that said, we'll move on, right? So the second fight now, this fight definitely I think was a war, right? And I think that's gonna resemble the third fight much more. In this fight, we saw mainly that Dustin had a power advantage over Max. Now it's important to note that Max only had 4 weeks to properly bulk up, which I don't even think he did. Honestly, I think on 4 week notice he probably just didn't cut weight. I think what happened with Max is Max was like, okay, well, you know what? So I'm going to this fight, rely on my skills and my experience. I know I can beat this guy. We're gonna find out this Friday, Saturday night. This Saturday night, we're gonna find out, like Max always says. And I think, I mean, any other guy, I think Max could have done that against. I just think Dustin in this fight showed again that he's just got so much grit, man. And this when it comes to wars and just being able to push your body to the limit, man. When you're watching a guy like Dustin and even Max, you're seeing that, man, and that's why you got to love both of these fighters. Um, In this the first round, we saw Dustin again. Max was landing well, but it's just when Dustin would land, it was just looked so much more devastating. The first and second round, really. It really looked like Max was fighting his big brother or something. Like he would be landing, outlanding him, and then Dustin would just land a giant shot, just a huge shot to just rock him. Now, Dustin did land more in the first round. I think he landed like 60 significant strikes to Max's 44. So that's important to know too. So Dustin did start out quick. He started out fast and he started out powerful. The boy was smacking Max around kind of in that round. Um, Very fun round to watch. And as you saw the fight go on, I think the second round was similar to the first round. You know, Max started to get a little bit more into his flow state a little bit, but you still saw Dustin landing the better shots. And then, Max, though, during the entire fight, just kind of he didn't give up, right? Although you can see his face here, I do think this cut happened in the third round, I think. It might have been the second round. I think it happened in the second round, but as you can see here, going into that third round, Max was just he wanted all the smoke still, even though he was taking a kind of a whooping early in the fight. He was getting hit with some slugging shots, right? But he still wanted all the smoke, right? And so I think what we saw here was Max saying, "It's not over, buddy." You know what I mean? You know what I mean? So I think that again, the third and fourth fight is when we started to see Max kind of come into his own. He really started to hit that flow state, and we saw him out volume Dustin in the third and fourth rounds. And why I think this is important, right, is because what I just said about all four rounds, all first four rounds in the second fight, I do think is going to happen again in this third fight. I think Dustin's gonna come out strong, fast, and aggressive. I do think Dustin's gonna try and close that distance. As you know, Max's distance management and footwork has always been legendary. Always been legendary. But in the second fight, what we saw Dustin utilize his footwork as well to close the gap, to close the distance, to get inside on Max and utilize some of that phone booth in the pocket boxing that Dustin's so good at. We're gonna get into that here in a moment too as well. But Dustin is just so good in the pocket, man. So good in the pocket, right? But again, let's get back to it. We saw again Max. He started to out volume Dustin in the third and fourth rounds. And we just saw him, picking up the pace. And, if you go back and watch this fight, the first time I watched it, I really thought Dustin kind of, had it in the bag pretty easy. But then when you rewatch the fight, you realize, okay, no, this is much more of a war than I thought originally. And, just fun, man. It's such a fun fight to watch. Now, although Max did start to pick it up in the third and fourth rounds, and he started to land a lot more volume. Um, what I think Dustin did in this second fight that I do think he's going to have to lean on in this third fight is the grappling and wrestling, right? Again, so the first two fights, really. So saw the first fight, he subbed Max. The second fight, he overpowered him, but there were moments where he was getting overwhelmed with volume. And so what we saw when he started getting overwhelmed with volume is we saw Max really start to, or Dustin really start to utilize the grappling. And look, he wasn't as successful in taking Max down. However, he was able to utilize a lot more, clinch him up on the fence. He was able to take him down a couple times. And what that did was you know, that kind of gave him a chance to breathe a little bit, get his composure a little bit, get control back of the fight a little bit. Because honestly, if it wasn't for him leaning on his grappling and his wrestling, I do think that Max would have finished him, or either finished him or Max would have won the fight. Because you did see moments where it looked like Dustin was, trying to catch his breath, but Max wouldn't allow it. And I do think that he utilized the wrestling to great effect, man. This is what I honestly think won him the second fight. I don't think if he wasn't able to utilize the grappling, I think Max would have eventually overwhelmed him. That's how the fight was looking in the third and fourth until he leaned on that grappling. So, this is one weapon that I think Dustin has that he's gonna have to utilize in this third fight because remember I noted that Max didn't properly bulk up for the second fight. That's not the case for this fight, buddy. We'll talk about that more in a minute. His power is when he properly bulks up, it's very noticeable. I do think Dustin still has a power advantage, but it's very noticeable how much more power Max has, and when he does properly bulk up, and I do think that will give Dustin problems. In fact, I think Dustin's going to have to lean on the wrestling and the grappling earlier, midway through that second round. He's going to start to feel Max a little bit, you know what I mean, and he's going to have to um, lean on that grappling because if he does not, Max will have more power and he will do what he started to do in the third and fourth round. He'll start to overwhelm Dustin. And if he's getting hit harder, he's getting overwhelmed and he's getting hit harder, you do the math, right? You do the math on that one, guys. So, yeah, I mean, just thinking about everything that I said, what do you guys think, man? Because the X factor really is Max has gotten so much better. And we're gonna get into his breakdown in a minute. But I do think that, again, Dustin's a better boxer, I think. But and he has more power. But we saw how close the second fight was. He has a wrestling advantage, I think, in the grappling with his jiu-jitsu black belt. Let's keep going. Let's keep going. Let's keep talking about it, right? And then maybe we'll get to an answer. All right. So listen, one of the things that I think is really important to note about Dustin is he has incredible boxing at range, like when he's close distance. When he is in the pocket, right, in the phone booth, as they say, and he's utilizing some, either dirty boxing or he's some in the clinch and he's still ripping, using his boxing combos. But not only just that, he has this sort of like modified Philly shell, right? Like we see him, he uses his elbows and his shoulders to block a lot of punches, where it looks like in the pocket he's getting touched up, but he's actually blocking a lot of those punches with his shoulders, and we saw that in the second Max fight. We saw him use a shoulder roll. He's rolling with punches. He's blocking them with. He's doing these movements here, right? We've seen him do that in the second fight. I think he has that advantage in the third fight. And it's funny. I was talking to a buddy of mine, and we were saying like, look, if Max goes in and he does the whole point to the ground thing, let's go, right? I don't think that's gonna be advantageous for him because of how good Dustin is in the pocket. Dustin's phenomenal in the pocket, man. And I don't think that you're just gonna go in there and point to the ground and he's a phenomenal boxer. He has more power than Max. And I think you're gonna see a similar respect that Max gave to Ilya. He not saying he's gonna give that same respect to Dustin, but he's definitely gonna, have it in the back of his mind. This guy's powerful. He's a good boxer. Um, yeah, so like I said, man, this guy Dustin, man, in the pocket, man, he's a problem. He's a problem. He's a different animal, One of the best boxers in the history of the UFC, in my opinion. All right. And so we see it here, in the clinch work. We saw Makhachev, a stronger, bigger, stronger guy than Dustin, had him in the clinch, had him on the fence at times, and man, this Dustin would just be rip into his body, landing devastating, brutalizing shots to the man's body, crippling shots, and like just throwing like four, five, six combinations to his body, man. And it was just very, very, very it was a war. He got strangled in this fight, important to note, but it was one of my favorite fights to watch with Dustin because he showed his warrior spirit I mean, the first round he got dominated, but then he came back, and you saw at the end of the fight, Makhachev's face. He looked like he was in a war. You know, Dustin put hands on him. And Makhachev, hit him too. Not gonna lie, Makhachev surprised me with his stand up in that fight. That's where I thought Dustin would have the advantage. Makhachev did land more, but Dustin landed good shots, busted Makhachev's face up. And I mean, there were moments where I was at the edge of my seat thinking, like, "Yo, is he about to stop Makhachev?" Right? I had that moment. The emotions were running high in that fight, and you know, great, 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 great fight to watch. Before we move on, there is one more weapon that I do think that Dustin has to utilize in this fight. And when Max moved up to fight Justin Gaethje, right? We saw Justin almost take him off his feet in the first round, and then throughout the fight landed some pretty hard leg kicks to Max. Dustin has a good leg kick game, man. We saw what he did to Connor's leg, right? Chewed up his leg and finished him. I do think that Dustin's gonna have to utilize all his weapons to win this fight. This is not gonna be an easy fight by any means. This is why I think this is gonna be one of the most incredible fights of the year. We'll get into who I think is gonna win here in a second, but Dustin's gonna have to lean on the leg kicks. He's gonna have to lean on the grappling, wrestling, anything he could potentially possibly do. He's gonna have to lean on. And I do think that with this being his last fight, he's going to go for broke. I think in the fifth round, these guys are gonna go at it like we've never seen. You know what I mean? I do think this is going to be an incredible, credible war, man. Again, very similar to the second fight. Only difference is Max is much stronger. I do think that Dustin got better too with his defensive wrestling. I do think that's not going to be a factor because Max is not about to take you down. So I do think that this training camp, we probably will see a more dialed in Dustin who focused much more on his striking versus his anti-grappling like he did versus Islam. I mean, that was some of the best defensive work we've seen against Islam's wrestling um, with Dustin stuffing some of those takedowns. All right, I think that's it from Mr. Dustin. Now look at this guy here, right? And so Mr. Max. So the difference is, if you look at Max here, weight drain, right? He drained down to 145. Man looks like he just got some real bad news, man, and he's trying to figure out how to process all of it. He just looks like he's hurting right now. He's like, dang, I don't know how to hold this together. He's trying to hold it together real hard right now, right? This is a weight drain Max. Here's the issue. He's not going to be weight drained for this fight. Yeah, he's a problem when that happens. And we've seen him fight a guy like Justin Gaethje. And yes, while he had that last 10 seconds, he had that moment where him and Justin, pointed to the ground. Justin came in like a retard and tried to slug with him and got knocked the fuck out. Like face planted on the ground, knocked the fuck out. You gotta watch that fight if you haven't watched it. That was one of the craziest knockouts in history, right? But Max had properly bulked up, man. He had properly bulked up for that fight, and Max was he was in his bag, man. He was in a flow state like we haven't seen. Max looked good, man, in that fight from start to finish. And see, the thing is, it wasn't just those last 10 seconds because um, we saw Max land a spinning heel kick in the first round, broke Justin Gaethje's nose, man. I was shocked Justin Gaethje was able to eat that. We saw him. I saw Max land a flush step in knee right up the middle, bang. I thought Justin Gaethje's head was gonna fly into the audience, man. I was so surprised he ate that. Like Justin Gaethje has an incredible chin, man. After you saw that in this fight, except for the last 10 seconds where he got slumped. But yeah, we saw Max properly bulk up, and I think that's going to be a problem. Now, we do again. I mentioned that Dustin needs to lean on those leg kicks, and I mentioned that Justin did land some leg kicks, some devastating leg kicks to Max's leg. However, I do think Max got better in this in the sense that he's not leaning on his front leg heavy on his front leg anymore. So he's much more his defense is improved. He's able to move out of the way of shots better. And again, like I said, throughout this fight against Gaethje, man, he was just in and out of the pocket, man. He was in and out, you know, and he was in a flow state. He really was, man. The whole fight, he was in this beautiful flow state, and he sh showed levels against Justin Gaethje. And I'm not gonna sit here and lie to you, man. I am one of the ones who doubted. I said that Justin was gonna get to him. He was gonna overpower him, kind of bullying him a little bit. But we saw the exact opposite happen. The exact opposite, you know. And we saw Max do that to Gaethje, and that was an incredible fight. Please go back and rewatch that if you haven't. Not only that, listen, this is the Boston finisher here, the Boston finisher. We saw Max land record numbers of strikes against this guy. He beat the absolute dog shit out of Calvin Kattar. He made him look like he shouldn't have belonged in the UFC. There were moments when Max was not looking at Calvin Kattar and was landing shots. Wasn't even literally had his hands down, outclassing Calvin Kattar, right? Max is one of the best boxers the UFC's ever seen. That's important to note. Again, I do think Dustin has a boxing advantage, but Max is no slouch. Even when he fought Ilia Topuria, he was doing great work against Ilia until Ilia slept him. And look, listen, one thing that I have to say about Max is great legacy, great wins in his career. Had Max moved up after that second Volk fight, there would have been a chance that he could have contended and potentially won the lightweight belt. Yep. I think the issue with Max is he continued to withdraw himself down to 145 and he continued to pursue Volk. And I think in the third fight, Volk showed him like this ain't your division anymore, bro. Sorry. Passing the torch, go on now. And I think had Max made a mistake. I know he had some good wins against Korean Zombie and Yair Rodriguez and all that, but I do think that if had Max moved up, man, I think we would have been looking at a better legacy for him. Because again, look, he beat Justin Gaethje, right? Legacy win. Dustin Gaethje's been in the top five for years. I mean, I can't even remember how long. It's been so long. Justin Gaethje's had been in the top five. Had Max moved up after that second Volk fight, he could have got that Justin win earlier. He could have got, maybe the Dustin fight earlier. He could have got, you know what I'm saying? He could have got the Charles Oliveira fight, who he has a win over. Now Charles was a pup, but either way, I can see Max beating Charles, especially when he properly bulks up and he's properly prepared for that fight. I definitely could see that, right? And Charles was the champion at that time. Important to note, right? So I do think that Max did a disservice by staying and fighting longer in at 145, where I think he should have went up to 155 earlier and tested the grounds there. And I think that you would be looking at a better legacy. You would be looking at him higher on the GOAT list. He's still very high in my opinion. Max has a lot of great quality wins. People don't know his he's got more quality wins than a lot of these GOATs that we have now. And I know y'all been asking for my GOAT list and my pound for pound list. It's all coming, but I'm telling you now, Max has a lot more quality than some of y'all GOATs. All right. So again, he's great boxing, and we saw that on display against Ilya. He was in and out. He's quick. His defense was better until he got caught. So, you know, I do think that Dustin is going to struggle with his speed in this fight as well. Not so much of footwork. Again, I think Dustin has good footwork. I think he'll be able to close the distance. I think that's especially early. But I do think he's going to struggle with Max's speed and Max's distance management. We know that Max all time is one of the best when it comes to distance management. I don't think anything's going to change in this fight. I just think that he's gonna have that advantage on Dustin, man, and it's gonna create real problems for Dustin, like real problems in my opinion. Um, Man, so I don't know. What are you guys thinking, man? Who do you guys think to come out, man? Who do you guys think is gonna come out the winner? This is gonna be a very, very fun fight. Again, I do think this is gonna be one of the best fights of the year, maybe of all time. You know, we see Max with the speed advantage. We see Max is properly bulked up, so he won't be at as much of a disadvantage in that area. We do know that Dustin has their grappling, and he won the first two fights, in my opinion, utilizing grappling and wrestling. We do know that Dustin is a slightly superior boxer, in my opinion. We do know about Dustin's dirty boxing, his boxing in the phone booth. These guys are so good, man. Ah, man, I can't. Again, like I said, the first two rounds I do think go to Dustin. I do think Dustin's gonna have to lean on the rest of them earlier. I do think Max will start to pick it up and get into his flow state into that third and fourth round, maybe late second round, then third and fourth round. So I do think it's gonna be 2-2 going into the fifth. I do think that in the fifth round, both guys are gonna have moments. I do think that both guys are gonna rock each other, hurt each other throughout the fight. I do think that at the end of this fight, both guys are gonna left bloodied and battered and bruised, and they're gonna look terrible. Probably gonna have to go to the hospital. Probably gonna have to take the extended break because of the fight. Um, Guys, it's very, very hard to say, man. But you know what? I am going to lean Dustin, man. I think that here's the thing. It's his last fight. He's gonna go for broke, man. I don't think I think he's properly prepared himself to go out. He wants to go out with a win and, take that god awful BMF belt with him. Retire the BMF belt. That'll add to his legacy. He'll close out the chapter against Max 3-0. Listen, like, I'm gonna tell you this, man. He's the best fighter to never win a belt. I'm not counting the BMF belt if he wins it. I don't care what anyone says. That's not a real belt. But yeah, guys, this is who I'm gonna go with. It is very difficult to do that though. It still can go either way. I would not be surprised if Max wins. Again, Max has gotten so much better defensively. He's bulked up. He's definitely closing the gap against Dustin, who he already had a close fight within in the second fight. So, would I be surprised if he wins? Absolutely not. I just don't think he will. I think Dustin's gonna grit it out like he does in some of these wars that we've seen him in, and he's gonna shine bright like a diamond. He's gonna, yeah. Guys, that's all I got, man. The MMA mechanic, please, yo, listen, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, hit the bell icon. Please leave a comment. I want to know what you guys think, man. I want to know what you guys think because, yeah, I really struggle to pick a winner with this one. And again, like I said, it can go either way. I don't know who's gonna win, but I do think I'm smart to go with Dustin for me here. All right.